Hi, this is Steve at Hilltops IT again, and this will probably be the last in this little run of videos about QuoteWerks Web AI Assistant. I've taken the web services and the dynamic forms as far as I want to for now. I've proved a point. I've proved that we can successfully retrieve details from a web service and get that information into QuoteWerks Web. The particular example I'm using is all about ConnectIt Software integrations, not necessarily relevant to you, but what this does open up, in my mind, is the opportunity to integrate QuoteWerks Web with systems like ServiceNow, Unleashed, Avalara, Avatax, WebEx, UPS, and on and on and on. We've done it for QuoteWerks Desktop. We've been doing it for a long time, but we've never had the possibility to do it with QuoteWerks Web. And this new feature, the AI assistant, the scripting, is that gateway. So just to recap on what I personally was trying to do, it was to bring in system settings that we have within the integrations for them to be edited within QuoteWerks Web. I'm showing you now on screen what might be a typical set of settings within an integration. So we're defining a process, which is get price stock, create sales order. There's various import ones here. There's various settings that go alongside this. These are all to do with field mappings and what's going from where to where between System A, QuoteWerks, and System B, Business Central, Unleashed, Monday.com, whatever you like. This is actually a customer's set of settings, a real world example, if you like. I'm not going to scroll too far because there is some sensitive information in there, but this is the example that I've been working with. Primarily the QuoteWerks database. That's one of the more common things that will change if you rehost it somewhere else, if you put it in, push your database into the cloud, if you get a new server. These types of settings will change. So let's see it in action. Let's get into QuoteWerks Web and let's see what I've been able to do here. So this is the script. I'll get into that shortly and how I generated it. If I just run the script for now, that's firstly going to ask me to select an integration type, an object, and a process. As you just saw, there's an awful lot of settings here. To load all of these at once would be quite intimidating to anybody trying to edit them, for one, and two, not entirely useful. Most of these, the sales order mappings, they stay the same. Like I said, it's QuoteWerks database settings or your MSBC API key. There's a client ID and secret. Those change every 6 months to 2 years, depending on the expiry. So it's that sort of thing that we want to be able to change easily. So for a start, we're filtering down those settings. The integration type, I'm just going to go for all. The object, I want my QuoteWerks database settings, and we're going to select all. When I submit that form, that's going to create a dynamic form which has got all those settings laid out for me. Referring back to the settings here, as you can see, they're all the settings that have come out of the database. If we, as you can see, I've already worked on this. Just put in some numbers, some slightly different values here, and hit submit, and that is telling me the settings were updated successfully. If we go back to here and just refresh that, you can see that's all been updated. Tick, brilliant. Not only have we been able to read data from an external web database via a web service, we've also been able to write it back as well. How is that applicable to you? Well, like I say, if you're using a non-native QuoteWerks contact manager, for example, we've had several inquiries about Monday CRM recently. We could, on the on a particular event or button press, go away, get a list of your contacts from Monday.com, present them in a list, rather like this kind of dynamic list here. Maybe we offer some filters there as well. Potentially that's possible. And then we can write those details to your QuoteWerks document. Maybe you've got a external system that holds price and stock information. We can now use, we always have been, well, I don't know about always, but for as long as I've used QuoteWerks, there's always been an API for the desktop, and we've been able to do these sorts of things with QuoteWerks Desktop. Now we can very easily, well, depends on the use case, but a lot easier than we could 3 or 4 weeks ago, because integrating with QuoteWerks Web just wasn't something that could be done. But now there is that option to be able to do this, and to be able to change those values on the document, rather like you would with a desktop integration. Needless to say, I'm pretty excited about this. One of my reasons for my excitement is I've spent about 4 hours on this today, I reckon. Probably more than half of that was developing some new APIs to get that list of integration types, get that list of objects, and the right back to the database as well. Actually generating the script was pretty straightforward. I've been very prescriptive in what I've written in here, so that I had to make minimal changes once the AI generated the script. I've told it exactly what web services. I've told it that this is the base URL for the web services that we want to hit. I've told it what it needs a header value of X API key, and I've told it what that API key is. I'm also telling the AI generation that there are 3 extensions to this base URL: integration types, objects, and processes. And each of these return JSON keys with a status and message, an array of string values in an object called integration types, objects, processes. So I'm offering it a lot of detail, so I'm not going to have to manually make too many changes once it's generated. I'm now asking it to create the first dynamic form. Oh, sorry, no, I'm not. I'm first asking it to send a post request to these web services, and to display the options on a dynamic form as option types. Now go into the help guide. We've got the description of how the values need to be formatted for the dynamic form to work as expected. What I'm next asking it to is if the user submits a form, then it should call a 4th web service, system settings, using the authentication details, same as before, but again writing it out so that there's no misunderstanding or minimal room for error with the AI generation. Pass selected values from the dynamic form request as a body. So what my API call is expecting is something like this. So what is my integration type, what is my object, what is my process, and in that will then return the status and message. They're a standard thing that I've included just so as we know immediately whether it's success or an error. It then returns all of the settings associated with that integration type, object, and process. So where are we next? So yeah, if it returns success, then we're going to use those to call the fourth web service, and if this returns success, then it's going to return the JSON plus the object, which is the one that we've just looked at with those keys: ID, customer ID, integration type, etc. And I want it to display a second dynamic form where I can change that. Well, we've seen that that's working. What I lastly asked it to do was, if the user submits the second dynamic form, then create a JSON object with an array of objects called system setting with those same keys in it. Again, being very, very prescriptive in asking it exactly what I want, not making any assumptions based on previous text that I've written, to make that as explicit as I possibly can to the API. Finally, please include any error handling if the call fails. Now, what QuoteWerks Web AI assistant returned was so close. The only changes I had to make in all of this script. Oh, one thing I did like about this, actually, let's just have a look at that. One of the things we're doing is calling 3 web services over and over. Now, what the AI assistant has done is create us a little function. So it's then fetching objects for integration types, for objects, for processes. Now, a lot of programmers I know would just copy paste this. They wouldn't create themselves a separate function. They'd repeat this code over and over for those different types. But yeah, the AI assistant really impressed me in kind of optimizing the number of lines of code by creating this function, and then you've just got a one-liner in your main function to call those things. It's loading those into these variables, which then make up that first form. So the bits that I had to change were down here. So this is when this is after the second dynamic form, and it's loading the settings from a combination of the settings object that it originally had plus the updated settings which are coming from that form. So most of this information that I'm passing back is exactly the same as what I read out. The only difference is going to be this value, which is coming from, like I said, that dynamic form, those values that I've changed. Now, when I what the API assistant had done is capitalize these, which actually, in rereading what I had above, was my fault, because where are we? That one. I'd actually capitalized them here when actually they should have been lowercase. What that meant was, I think I've still got a debugger statement in there. Yeah, I have. So let's switch the debugger on. Let's run that again. Okay, go through all these again. And submit that. And so now we've jumped out of the debugger. So those updated settings, I think it was. I can't quite read that. Yeah, here we go. It's these system settings. These come through as undefined, which will, when I hit play, will make the web service fail, the update web service fail, because it doesn't like these blank values. And that is just down to the capitalization or lack of capitalization on those values. As you can see, undefined, undefined. If I carry on with that, yeah, we've got a error bad request, which it was. Let's clear that and let's go back here and let's change that back. Let's run that again. Select select our QuoteWerks database, hit submit on that, and now we will see that our system settings, we've got values in those settings now. I'm curious that these are actually capitalized now, but anyway, that has worked for us. One last thing that I wanted to show was how the dynamic form handles it if we've got a lot of settings that we're pulling out, and it actually handles it pretty well. So if we go for Business Central, what I'm going to do is load these MSB sales order ones. There's as you can see, there's an awful lot of them. They won't all fit on one page. What is the dynamic form going to do for us? Well, it very nicely puts a little scroll bar down the side for us. I don't fancy editing all of those too often. It's like I say, quite intimidating, but it's there. It's something that we can achieve with QuoteWerks Web. Now, like I said previously, it only would have been doable with QuoteWerks Desktop. That's it for me for now. If you would like to know more, then get in touch with the website. There's a messaging service on the website, or if I'm available, then there's immediate chat. More traditional ways of getting hold of me. There's if I can get rid of that. There's a phone number, international and UK, on the website, or inquiries at ConnectIt-Software.co.uk. I hope you found this useful, interesting. I hope you found it half as exciting as I have over the past few days playing around with this stuff. Really looking forward to an actual customer, real world example rather than me just tinkering around with this stuff. But hats off to QuoteWerks development team. It's honestly been a while coming for this, but now it's here. I'm looking forward to the future of what it can bring for us.